Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. Today we're kicking off week 2 of May the Force read with you, and I'm feeling good this week. I'm feeling good going into this week's reading because last week was pretty successful. I managed to read 3 books last week, and there was this interesting theme that emerged where every book I picked up was not what I expected it to be. They all kind of defied my expectations based on marketing, copy, and other reviews that I had read. So I'm curious to see if a similar theme or some other kind of theme emerges from my reading this week. But for this week, I'm going to be starting with Empire of the Vampire, and that's because at the end of last week, or rather last week as a whole, I started using a spinner wheel to try and decide what I was going to read because I was getting a little overwhelmed looking at this stack and I wasn't sure what I wanted to pick up. The spinner wheel really helped me get over that, but then at the end of the week I spun this one and proceeded to read something else entirely. I had an arc I needed to get to, so I wanted to make sure that that was read before that book comes out later this month, which was The Midnight Pack by Jasmine Kuliasha, and it comes out on the 27th, I think. But I got that one read, and so I figured since I did spin and get this one at the end of last week, we would kick off this week with Empire of the Vampire. I feel like it's a good thing this one's coming up early because it is just like very chunky. It's the biggest book on the TBR, and I want to give myself plenty of time to read it. So I'm actually not mad about this coming up at this point in time. I'm also curious to see how I feel about this because I did previously read 250 pages of it, and then I don't even remember why something came up and I just didn't have time to finish it, and now it's been like 3 years since I picked it up. So I feel like it's time to get back to it, and I'm interested to see how I feel about it because I remember having a decently good time with it. It was fun, it was a little bit over the top and ridiculous, and I'm excited to see what my final feelings on this book are. I don't know if I'm going to end up loving it or hating it, but I think it's going to be interesting to find out. So that's what we're starting with the reading for this week. And in terms of other plans, I don't think there's a lot. Today is Friday, and I'm planning to do all of these vlogs from Friday to Thursday, just because I feel like having that weekend at the beginning of the vlog, one, it worked well with the timing of the start of the month with the readathon, but also I feel like having this weekend kind of at the beginning of the vlog allows for a big chunk of reading to kind of happen at the start. It gives me a good like foundation for the week. So feeling good about that. Other plans, we are going to go to the farmer's market over the weekend. That's going to be fun. We're going to go look and see if we can get some fresh produce because we're in need of some of that. And then also tonight I'm playing Crab Game for a friend's birthday. She's a streamer and she is doing this like week-long celebration. I joined with one of her other streams on Tuesday, and so then today I've signed up to do Crab Game for the kind of close of her birthday week streams. So looking forward to that. Should be a good time. Beyond that, I don't really have any plans at the moment besides reading and hopefully doing some streaming next week. Work has been really busy this past week I should say, and most of that stuff that has been causing that busyness is due kind of in the middle of next week. So still a little bit busy, but I'm making some progress, and I'm hopeful I'll have a little bit more time where I'm not thinking about work in the next week. So I'm hopeful that I can, 1, get a lot of reading done, and 2, start streaming again because I didn't stream like at all this week, and also have some weaving I need to get done that's behind me. I was gonna shift and show it to you, but actually I don't know if I can get far enough off. You can kind of see it right there. I really want to do some more weaving because it's been a while since I've done that. So have a lot of big plans this week in terms of trying to get to hobbies. We'll kind of see how things shake out. I don't know what's going to happen, but I think that's everything we need to say. Just kick off the week. So happy second week of May the Force read with you, and I'll see you guys later with some reading updates. It has been way too long since I remembered to update this vlog. I guess not so much remembered. I've tried. I filmed a bunch of clips and then I've deleted them all because I just don't have anything to say about Empire of the Vampire, and I'm just rambling in all of them. So I kind of gave up, figured I'd read a little bit further, and now here we are on Thursday. And I realized I don't think I even told you what this book was about at any point. So I guess we'll start there, and then I'll talk about why I'm having so much trouble updating about it. So the premise of this is basically Name of the Wind crossed with Interview with the Vampire, but if you made those two things self-consciously edgy and dark, and then you mixed in a bunch of like video games that Jay Kristoff has played in recent years. I don't even know if he's played these games, but this has very distinctive flavors of Skyrim, Bloodborne, and The Witcher, and then you wrapped all of that in like a fantasy Catholicism bow. That's the vibe of the book, and the plot premise is that we're following Gabriel de Leon, who is the last of the Silver Saints. He's a vampire hunter, and he is in prison after having killed the forever king of the vampires and is awaiting execution. But a vampire historian named Jean-Francois comes in wanting to know his story and kind of record it for posterity. So now Gabriel is telling his story in 2 timelines. We're following him as a young boy from the time that he joins the Order of Saint-Machan. It's called the Silver Order, the Ordo Argent. From the time that he joins them up through the events that make him into the man that we meet in this book. And then we also have the second timeline, which is the events that immediately preceded his being captured by the vampires. What happened that led to his murder of the Forever King and his being stuck in this prison cell at the beginning of the book. So we have these 2 different timelines that are telling us 2 different parts of the story, and I am enjoying that. I like the kind of tension between those timelines as we're learning more about Gabriel as a young man, the kind of more idealistic version of him, and then the events that led him to become the kind of jaded, cynical asshole that he is when we actually meet him. And then the events that immediately preceded, I think it's interesting that, like, that's the actual plot. So we have kind of the character arc and then the plot happening along 2 different timelines. I am enjoying that. I'm also kind of interested in this discussion that the book is having on, like, the idea of legends and the conflict between the ways that people view Gabriel from the outside and the ways that Gabriel views himself. I think that that's a pretty interesting discussion because it's kind of the idea of being a person versus being an icon, and I want that to go somewhere interesting, but I don't know if it's going to yet. It definitely has come up several times, but I don't know if it's going to go anywhere, like, compelling yet. Beyond that, I just don't have anything to say about this book. It's fine. It's a story about a guy becoming a vampire hunter and then going on a big mission to fight the vampires. That's it. It's very, very straightforward in what it's doing. And I feel like, because it feels so derivative of other work, it just doesn't feel like it's doing anything interesting or new with the work that it's using. Like, if it was taking some of those ideas but then putting a new twist on them or critiquing them in some way, I think that would be really interesting. But it's just using them. It's just straightforwardly going, here's some fantasy tropes, have fun. But with the, like, what J. Kristoff calls blood smutty vibe that he's baked in, which I call the self-consciously edgy and dark vibe that my friend described in a way I think is really good, which is that she feels like, having not read it, having only heard me describe it, but I feel like is accurate, she said it feels like J. Kristoff is hanging over your shoulder going, yeah, isn't that cool? Yeah, that's so badass and fun. And yeah, that is very much what the book feels like when you're reading it. It's just that, like, J. Kristoff thinks that what he's written is cool and wants you to know it, is the vibe of the book. And that's really all I have to say about it. There is another funny thing that's kind of happening where I think that because everyone is constantly, like, swearing and constantly, like, talking about body parts, which I will say that's the gentlest way I can say it, there's this weird vibe that emerges in the framing narrative, because we have the 2 timelines, but we also have the framing narrative of Gabriel speaking to Jean-Francois, and that keeps kind of popping in at different points, where Jean-Francois will pop in to be like, hey, wait, I need you to explain something, or can you back up and tell me about this other thing? So we have that happening, but in the frame narrative, and I think it's just an effect of the way that the book has been written and the way that all of the characters interact with each other, but it feels like there is, like, homoerotic tension between Gabriel and Jean-Francois that I am 100% sure is not intentional. I don't think that J. Kristoff is writing a, like, secret vampire erotic romance in the background, but that's what it feels like that frame narrative wants to be. There's all of these moments where Gabriel will, like, stare at Jean-Francois while touching his lips, or Jean-Francois will be, like, watching Gabriel's hands with fascination as they're speaking, and then they're having all of this banter. We're told that they hate each other, but the way that they speak to each other does not communicate, like, hatred. There's this kind of interest and fascination between them. So yeah, I think it's completely unintentional, but there definitely feels like a, like, homoerotic tension there that I don't think is supposed to be there, but I'm gonna be honest, is my favorite part of the book. I just want Jean-Francois to get his man. That's all I want from this. So yeah, that's it. That's everything I have to say about the book, and I know that that's been longer than it probably seemed like it should be. It's been 5.5 minutes of me rambling, but I don't feel like I've said that much about the book as a whole. Like, it's fine. It's fine. So I think what I need to do is not allow this book to become a logjam, which it very much is becoming. I'm 150 pages in after reading for 7 days. So I need to, I think, break this book up with something else. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and get to page 250 this evening, but I'm not going to come back and talk to you about it again. I'll talk about this book when I finished it, which should be in the last week of the readathon. I'm going to do 250 today, read 250 pages, so I get to page 500 next week, and then the final week of the readathon I'll read the last portion of the book. It's 720 pages, so should be able to read a slightly shorter section that last week. So I'm gonna break it up that way for my own sanity and so that we can actually make progress, because I feel like I've kind of stagnated on the goals I was trying to achieve. And we're gonna go ahead and get another book to read alongside this, and that, if I can find my phone and spin the wheel, that will be what I come back and talk to you about later before the end of this vlog. This evening, hopefully. I'm creating so much work for myself. It's fine. I'm also going to be on my friend's stream this evening, so that's what we're going to do. We're going to spin the wheel and get something to read alongside this. Okay, now I've got the wheel. I had to take a minute to update it because I needed to take off Empire the Vampire and make sure I'd updated it for the changes that I made to this stack last week. But we are good to go now. Let's spin it and get something to read alongside. The Ivory Key by Akshay Raman. Okay, that sounds fun. That is a YA fantasy. I think it's near the top here, so I should be able to grab it. Let me grab it real quick. It's YA fantasy about 4 siblings that hate each other or have like differing complicated relationships with each other, who end up needing to work together to, I believe, find an artifact to save the magic in their kingdom. And it sounds really cool. I remember reading a few pages of this and really liking the characters right from the start. So this feels like a fun one to have alongside. Actually, you can see I left my bookmark in even, so I'll take that out because it's been long enough. I definitely need to restart the book, and I need to anyway for the readathon, since I can't read a partially read book for this readathon. But I'll restart this and I'll check back in with you later. I'm actually excited about that as another pick for the week. I've been really intrigued by this. I love the cover. This is, I think, the Fairy Loot edition, but I love the orange and blue cover, and the art is beautiful. So this is like one of the prettier books on my shelf anyway, but I've just been intrigued by the concept, and I remember liking the writing like right from the start. So good pick, I feel like, for alongside this nonsense. So I will check back in with you later with some beginning updates on the Ivory Key, and like I said, I'll update this at the very end of the readathon when I'm done. Fingers crossed I'll actually be done with it. I've not made it to page 250 of Empire the Vampire, which is fine. I'm not that far off. I'll get there. But I have made it 100 pages into the Ivory Key, and that feels like progress. I am enjoying this so far. The writing is really lovely, and I think the world is really vivid and interesting. I like the politics that the book is setting up. We're following these 4 siblings, all of whom are from the royal family of this world. They're living in this empire called Ashoka, which is a place that is basically like based around magic. The origins of the country are from a group of states that gathered together to pool their resources because they discovered they had magic quarries, and in this world magic is something that you would like dig out of the earth, and then there's specialized jobs where people are trained to process it because it's very dangerous if you're not trained properly, at least until it's been forged into something. So magic is not like magic powers, but it's like magic objects. So Ashoka was a place that had all of these quarries and then created magical objects for export. At the time that we're meeting these characters and seeing things happening in the country, Ashoka is running out of magic. Its quarry is basically empty, and they're on the verge of war with an empire that is on the border with them, and the empire believes that it's being denied magic. So they're kind of on the brink of war, and we have one sibling who has recently become the new Maharani, who is the like leader of the country. She's like the queen. We also have her sister who ran away from the family, a brother who seems to want to run away from the family, and I'm not exactly sure what he's up to yet, and then another brother who was arrested for the mother's death, and we don't know exactly what led to his arrest yet. So we're following all of these characters that have very different motivations, very different places in the world at this point, but I know that they're all going to have to come together because they're looking for something called the Ivory Key, which is supposedly a key that will unlock a bunch of hidden quarries and allow Ashoka to regain its magic and start exporting again, and basically will solve all of its problems. So it's all of these characters trying to do that. I'm really intrigued so far. I think some of this character relationships are feeling a little bit flat. There's several moments where I feel like characters just like switch moods all of a sudden. There'll be like friends 1 second and then suddenly they hate each other. Or the other thing I think is that because we have so many POV characters, there are 4 POV characters in here, we don't see them interact with the side characters that much. We're only getting like little glimpses of them. So maybe it's just that like in those moments where something is changing, I don't have the context of the prior relationship to understand the significance or to like feel the significance of that change in the relationship. So I think there's a little bit of issue with that, but the pacing is really good so far. It's very quick and just keeps moving. There's not, I wouldn't say action exactly, but there's a lot going on. We have a lot of different things happening with like smugglers and politics and thieves, and there's like the prison section. So there's lots of things happening, and the chapters are very short and very quick to read. I really didn't put that much effort into reading this first 100 pages. That was a pretty fast effort on my part. So I am having a good time. I'm intrigued to see where it's going to go. I think I'm a little torn on how I'm feeling about the characters at the moment, but I'm intrigued by the plot. I want to see where everything is going to go, and I'm looking forward to reading the rest. And it should be a pretty fast read from what I've gathered so far. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with this, and I'm glad that I feel now like I'm making some progress towards my goals for the readathon. I haven't read very much this week, but I've now made progress on 2 books instead of just being stuck in this one big brick of a book. So hopefully I'll be able to pick things up next week, which should be possible. I don't really have a lot going on next week, and I'm through the worst of the really stressful part of work that I was in this like previous week. Work has just been a lot because we've had a lot of really big things that were all happening kind of at once. So it was one of those like everything has the same deadline. Oh my gosh, how are we gonna get it all done? But we've gotten through the bulk of that now, and things are calming down a little bit, so I'll be a little bit less stressed, and hopefully I'll be able to be more productive with my reading next week, because I'm in the mood to read, and now I feel more like I have the mental energy to do so. So yeah, feeling pretty good about that. Sorry it's a short vlog this week, but that's just how it goes sometimes. Hope it was enjoyable anyway. But I think that's pretty much all I have for you today. I really hope you enjoyed this video despite its short length and underwhelming amount of reading. If you have, I hope you consider giving it a like, maybe even subscribing to see what comes next. I'm currently posting twice a week, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye.